without further ado, please give a round of applause for Richard Lederer.
Also makes your voice bigger. Rich Lederer, your resident almost resident fly-by-the-roof of the mouth, user-friendly linguist, Wizard of Idiom, Attila the Pun, Conan the Grammarian, and quite simply the most word-struck, word-besotted, word-bethumped, wordaholic you will ever meet. And I have the honor of 4 books coming out. You'll have to wait till 2021 with Imperfect's Firestarter books, and also being International Punster of the Year. I love collecting the classic puns. A good pun is like a good steak. It's a rare, medium, well done. And so I'm going to perform 2 of them in my books. So we'll start with this one. Quasimodo. You've all heard of Quasimodo, not the real Modo, the Quasimodo. Not the quarterback of Notre Dame, not the halfback of Notre Dame, not the fullback of Notre Dame, but the... Well, okay, so one of the many, many advantages of coming to this session and the others is you're going to learn how to make a Quasimodo face. So everybody, we've got the cameras on you, ready? Take your index fingers, pull down on your eyes. Come on, everybody. And then pull up like this. Madam Mistress of Ceremonies, bad news, you're stuck. It's still there. But look at the versatility here, okay? Quasimodo, right? Now look at this, ready? Phantom of the Opera. You get 2 for 1. Well, Quasimodo grows too old to ring the bells. He puts out an ad in the paper, wanted bell ringer. The next day he opens his door, and out on his front stoop, there's a fellow with no arms, completely disarming. Quasimodo says, "Wait a minute, are you here for the job of a bell ringer?" "Yes, I am." And Quasi says, "Well, sir, I have to ask you, you demonstrate a lack of appendages in the upper torso area. How do you propose to ring the bells?" "Well, I may have no arms, but I have a very tough forehead. I run at the bells, I strike them, and they emit a gorgeous, exquisite, sonorous, beautiful sound. You're hired," says Quasimodo. So the armless fellow mounts the obligatory spiral staircase up into the tower, looks at the bell, runs at it, bang! Gorgeous, exquisite, sonorous, beautiful, even tintinnabulating. But the bell is on a lever. It swings back, clops him in the head, knocks him out of the tower, and he splatters on the cobblestones below. The police come. Mr. Quasimodo, yes. Do you know this man?" "Well, yes, he was in my employ, but apparently he jumped to a conclusion." "Well, for our record, can you give us his name?" And Quasi says, "I don't know his name, but his face rings a bell." God, nobody's leaving. Yay, okay, on to number 2. We know what that is. Can I take you around the woman with the auburn? Yes, you're going to the next thing I'm doing. My photo shoot tomorrow. Come along. So, at any rate, another one. An eponym is when somebody's name becomes a word, and one of them is Spoonerism, and that goes back to a fellow named William Archibald Spooner, who entered the earthly stage around 1834, went on to become, for 60 years, a distinguished professor of literature, history, divinity, and philosophy in the Oxford Yards. But because of a touch of albinism, he had an aphasia that made him reverse initial consonants and consonant blends. So, for example, when he raised this tankard of ale to toast the reigning monarch, Queen Victoria, he said, "3 cheers for our queer old Dean." And queer old Dean, it really should, right. And as human beings, you're kind of wired to make that reversal. And they became known as Spoonerisms. He was a devout Anglican, and one day he entered church, and there was a woman in his usual spot. He approached her and said, "Madam, you are occupying my pie. May I sew you to another sheet?" That's been authenticated. So I'm going to give you the Terry fail, and that would be, of course... All right, this is another audience participation, because you did that for me to begin with. So what happens is, as in Simon Says, if I do that, you provide the real words from my spoonerism. So I'm going to tell you the Terry Fail of Prinderella and the Synths. Good. But if I don't do this, don't do that. Or you can't get any cookies afterwards. You're a bunch of smart cookies, obviously. So, once upon a time, there lived a gritty little pearl, and her name was Prinderella. I didn't do that or anything. Her name was, she lived with her stick-it-wet mother and her sugly isters, and they made her pine all the shots and shans, wean all the clindos, and do all the wordy-dirk around the house. Isn't that a shirty dame? Well, one day the pig issued a proclamation that all the eligible earls in the kingdom should come to a Drancy Fest ball. Oh, you're good? Excellent. Prinderella didn't have a Drancy Fest. All she had was an early drag. Come on now, here. An early drag. What a shirty dame. So off went the stick-it-wet mother and the three sugly isters to the Drancy Fest ball, while Prinderella stayed home. And who should appear but, you can guess, Prinderella's Gary Fodmother. And the Gary Fodmother quickly turned the pumpkin into a poach, 4 heists in the morses, and Prinderella's early drag into a dragnificent mess. She said, "Now, Prinderella, you go off to the Drancy Fest ball, and you have a good time, but you better be home by the moke of Stridnight." So Prinderella went off to the Drancy Fest ball, and dang, she did have a good time, because at the Drancy Fest ball, Prinderella met a pransome hints. And she pranced with that dince. Notice one consonant changes, because I switched one word, all light and long. And at the moke of Stridnight, Prinder ran down the stylus peps. Now I'm going to give you the real word. You give me the spoonerism. And she didn't drop her slipper. What did she do? Slopped her dripper. The older I get, the more I do that myself. I'm almost 82. I'm slopping my dripper all over the place. Well, the next day, the king issued a proclamation that all the eligibles in the kingdom should slide on the tripper. The stick-it-wet mother slide on the tripper, it fit and did. The three sugly isters slide on the tripper, it fit and did. But Prinderella flipped her soot into the tripper, and it fit it. And Prinderella was absolutely pickled tink. So she and the dints garried, and they hived happily ever laughter. And the star of the Mari is, if you want to go to a Drancy Fest ball and meet and marry a pransome hints, you better be sure to slop your dripper. Thank you.